Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your planet is now marked for death.
It's my fault. I stretched the bounds of space. And they heard.
Are we safe?
I don't know. There's not enough time.
I'm not giving up. We will face this together. We will fight it together. As a family. Has to be us.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bust Up Boys. I'm Zach.
And I'm Zahran.
And this has never happened to us, but Zahran, do you want to explain why we are recording a second Fantastic Four episode?
Yeah, we're having a little deja vu right now. I mean, I like seeing you, Zach, but not in these circumstances. Not so soon. Unfortunately, the software we use for our podcasting lost my half of our recording, so we just have a video of Zach talking to himself. We could upload that and see what you guys think. It's a little Mr. Robot situation going on over there. Big spoilers. I'm so sorry, but so if you haven't watched Mr. Robot, it won't be my weekly recommendation. Do not worry. But yeah, we're doing this again. Hopefully, we're a little more structured. Actually, we won't be, because I know we're going to be thinking of things we said last time and try to repeat those things again. We'll try to refrain from doing that and keep our original thoughts. So yeah.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. Like, we basically had a rehearsal for all these talking points, and now you're getting it in the more structured form. Maybe not. Zahran, what did you think about Fantastic Four First Steps?
So, trying to remember what I said last time. So I think this movie was a bit of like a tale of two halves, where the first half was incredible. I love the world building. I like that we were in a new Earth, new part like MCU, where we don't really need to know about anything. We didn't need to do any previous homework. Didn't need to watch like 30 hours at least of like Disney Plus shows or anything like that. You go in, it's a fresh start, and you enjoy it. I love the retro futuristic aesthetic that this world has. I love the performances by almost every single cast member, from Mr. Fantastic, Joseph Quinn, Sue Storm, and Ben Grimm. I know I just mixed up actors and their characters, but you get the gist. I thought Ralph Ineson did a great job as Galactus. So performances were great throughout. However, and the action was also pretty awesome, because what I really liked was they fought as a family. You know, Vin Diesel a little bit. So that was a joke I said that, hit a lot better last time, because Zach laughed, but this time not so much, because,
Well, I knew you were going to say, and last time I was like, Vin Diesel, I got that reference, but
yes,
I knew that was coming this time.
Yeah, it is what it is. But all that aside, first half was great. The second half, and there's a certain climax, which we'll go into spoilers later. There's a second half where they made some decisions on the writing side, and it feels like the writing just fell off a cliff, and we kind of resorted back to our typical MCU movie madness, typical like generic MCU comic book action movie. But even with that said, it was a good movie, and I really appreciate it. It's an above average MCU movie. But yeah, Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, to repeat what I said last time, to quote a friend, I think it was kind of the mid-tastic four. Kind of like you said, and me and Zara are kind of on the same page. I thought the first 40 minutes of the movie were the strongest. It felt like Interstellar, but a superhero movie, which is really cool. This movie looks really good. And Zahran, I know you saw it in IMAX, and I think it's definitely the way to see it. If you haven't seen it, see it on the biggest screen possible because there's some really cool visuals in this film. And honestly, while watching the beginning of this film, I thought that it was better than Superman, which really surprised me. It was like heading in that direction all the way up into, like you said, the middle action scene. But then once they get home from that scene, or like right after that scene, I think the writing starts to show its weakness. And we'll get into it, but basically it resorts back to some cliches. There are some plot holes. If you're not like super familiar with the Fantastic Four mythology, you may not totally buy into exactly everything that's happening in the plot. And so we'll talk more about that in a second with spoilers. But yeah, it really was a tale of two halves with this movie.
Yep. So let's, I think in our last one, we were being very overly negative for what we've, I think at the end decided it was a good movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, let's change it up a little bit. What were your positives about this movie that you would say?
Yeah, I think it comes down to two or three things. The first thing is visuals. I thought this was a really good looking movie. So even though it is CGI heavy, which is usually like a bad thing, and you see like some superhero movies retreating away from CGI, like Thunderbolts was like a lot of like real action and not so much CGI. This movie is a lot of CGI, which makes sense. It's like Fantastic Four are kind of overpowered. Silver Surfer is like obviously a very CGI friendly kind of character. It still looks really good, and it wasn't like a Zack Snyder kind of color palette. It had that kind of like retro kind of feel. So I like the theme and the colors and the CGI, and the cast is like super duper strong as well. Like this feels like a family, and we'll go through each of the characters when we thought about each of them individually. But this is not, Mr. Fantastic and his helpers. This is actually a pretty even keeled effort between the different members of the Fantastic Four, which I think is a huge plus. So the cast, like basically all rocks, whether it's the members of the Fantastic Four or Julia Gardner as the Silver Surfer, like they're all pretty good. And then yeah, like I think the good thing is that it's a low bar, but it's definitely better than the older Fantastic Four movies. I haven't seen those movies, but from what I could tell, this one just blows those out of the water. So I think it met all those criteria. Like I think there are a lot of questions here, and then also we'll get into later, but I think it kind of like in a good way, like kind of like put a fast one on the Marvel viewers. I think for people who watched Thunderbolts, at the end of that movie, there's a post-credit scene. And so we thought we knew what was going to happen in this movie. And that we thought that maybe there'd be some interdimensional travel and whatnot. And there's maybe a little bit of that, but not in the way we thought it would be. And so I thought it was cool that Marvel kind of like faked out like the fans here to not make it so predictable. And so I think those are all highlights of this movie. Again, like I said, Ron, this is a good movie. It's just like second half, it just like doesn't quite land the plane.
Let's talk about this. Why I think this got reviewed very similarly to Superman. It's performing box office. It is underperforming Superman a little bit on the box office side of things, but for all intents and purposes, and from everything I've seen about the reception of it, it is very positive. I'm wondering what about this movie just didn't resonate with us the way I feel like Superman resonated with us. Trying to think about this. Like, I feel like one of the biggest things was like James Gunn with Superman knocked it so out of the park that when we went into this, I think our expectations were at another level that I didn't expect. Another thing for me personally was that the runtime just felt a little too short. An hour 55-minute movie, even though, yes, it's a very self-contained, you don't need to watch much of MCU stuff beforehand. And the pacing felt fine. Like there's nothing wrong with the pacing.
Yeah.
Personally, I felt like. But I think that shorter runtime cut off a lot of things that made this into another by the book MCU movie for me. And again, comparing it to the James Gunn Superman, this felt like it kind of lacked a little bit of the heart and soul that the TLC that James Gunn put into Superman was kind of missing in this, where in this one it felt more, it felt formulaically good, formulaically adequate, versus Superman taking some risks and nailing those risks. I think that's the biggest differentiating factor between the two movies, and why I wasn't, although happy, not fully satisfied with this movie.
Yeah, I got two things. The first is like the soundtrack. So Superman has a built-in advantage because you have the iconic John Williams soundtrack to rip off of. So there's that recognizable music going throughout the movie. And then also James Gunn tosses in his like music picks as well, which he did so well with Guardians of the Galaxy. And then he also does this a little bit as well in this movie. I mentioned last time, you end the movie on that punk rock song with Superman and how Superman is kind of like a punk rock fan, and so that was just like a little bit of heart, a little bit of like zest that like Fantastic Four didn't have, because Fantastic Four, it feels a little more sterile. Like I said, it's almost like a little bit more like by the playbook. Some people in suits like wrote that screenplay. It seems like at some points. So that's one thing Superman has that Fantastic Four doesn't. And then also Superman, I think, makes effort to try and tie the Superman world to the real world. You have people on social media. You have like bot farms. You have conflicts with like Russia versus Ukraine or Israel versus Gaza. And so you have those like real life like comparisons. And I think that makes the movie a lot better. It makes it a lot more engaging. You're kind of thinking about these parallels. You don't really have any of that in the Fantastic Four. And in the Fantastic Four, actually, the members of the public are almost more like NPCs. Like, oh yeah, we're going to like reduce electricity consumption in order to transport Earth. Like that's definitely a thing that would not happen in real life, right? But Superman like wouldn't do that. Superman actually has like social media and like how people like actually react. So I think that's one thing that makes Superman, that puts Superman like a step above Fantastic Four, in my opinion. It's like you have the heart, you have the effort to make it more like actual reality.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think I kind of want to get into spoilers now. So for everyone, spoilers here. Let's get into what made us really sour on this movie. And I think what you said about the NPC crowd nails it. So one, Pedro Pascal performed a great Reed Richards. At first, I was a little iffy about it, but the more I thought about it, this is exactly how you want Reed Richards to act. He has the stress of the world on his shoulders. He's not the most, personable, but he's a genius. His superpower, yes, he's stretchy, but that's not his superpower. His superpower is his intellect. So you always know of him as a genius, and the like biggest issue why I initially had an issue with Reed Richards was that Pedro Pascal just has so much charisma, natural charisma himself, that it kind of overpowers his acting of another character. So when he's playing Reed Richards, it's hard not to see him playing Reed Richards as Pedro Pascal. But I think he did his very best to differentiate himself from his other characters. He was a lot less charismatic somehow. As hard as he tried, he is still charismatic, but not as much as he is in like the comics and his backstory and everything like that. So that gets me to the biggest issue with the film. So after, I would say, for both of us, like the peak fight scene where you see everyone working together in such an intuitive and like strategic way, like you see, what do you call it? Ben Grimm's highlights, where you can see him as a pilot going around and slingshotting around the black hole. You see Reed Richards calculating how to slingshot around the black hole and the timing between the two. You see Sue using her telekinetic powers, and you see Johnny using his fire powers to like distract and the Silver Surfer, to escape from the Silver Surfer. And you see all of that together, and you see like, wow, that is the Fantastic Four. Them working as a unit together was really awesome to see. Right after that, you see they come back to Earth. The public is expecting them to have defeated Galactus. Reed Richards comes to the press conference, and the crowd asks, like, hey, how did you guys defeat him? Like, how'd it go? And he brutally, oh shoot, we're missing a lot of scenes. One big thing we forgot was that Sue gave birth during that space scene. And Galactus wanted the baby for himself and said, I won't eat your world if you give me your baby. And they refused, and then they escaped. Big part that we missed. That we remembered in the first time we did this episode. But um, so when they confronted him and asked him like, "Hey, what happened?" For some idiotic reason, Reed Richards blurts it all out. Says like, "Yeah, he wanted our baby, but we said no, and now Galactus is coming to Earth to defeat us." And when they asked, "Oh, are can you defeat him?" He's like, "I don't know." And I feel like, as for someone who's as pragmatic as Reed Richards is supposed to be, that just did not click for me. He could have said, "Hey, we're working on it. We encountered him. We took samples of his like skin or something like that." There's so many things he could have said, because he did clearly at the end of the movie think of a solution and nailed the solution. But it is what it is. Like, that was a huge negative for me to see that. And the second part to go in hand with that was that the public was clearly frustrated with them to say like, "Hey, one baby versus billions and billions of people in the earth. The decision is clear what we should be doing." So to go hand in hand with that, you see Sue Storm at one point coming down with the baby and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to give you the baby." And she gives a riveting speech, which I think was, one of the highlights for Vanessa Kirby playing Sue Storm.
Yeah.
However, the public's reaction to just accept this speech, you think billions and billions of people in the entire world would accept that speech? Maybe I'm being cynical. Maybe takes place in is a lot less cynical than ours. But that part of the writing just felt very weak and felt very like kumbaya, to the point where it kind of took me out of the movie. Zach, I'll let you continue what you think as well in terms of spoilers.
Yeah, and like I think that for me it was a couple big things, and I wasn't as familiar with the Fantastic Four, I guess, comic book mythology. So some of these things, like I think if you're deep in the comic books, you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. But someone like newer to it felt like a plot hole. Like first, like it wasn't super duper obvious what's special about the baby. I think it was meant to convey that Galactus wouldn't need to eat anymore, but it wasn't fully explained, and like it wasn't fully explained if we could trust Galactus. Like if we actually gave the baby, like would Galactus actually like not eat Earth? Like that wasn't super clear. Like if I was Mr. Fantastic, that's what I would say. Like in the press conference, at least I'd be like, well, we don't know what he'd do with the baby. Like maybe just take the baby and then still eat Earth. Like that's something like a bad guy would do. So it's kind of weird that like the plot just doesn't address that. And then for me watching the movie, like I thought it was weird, or like I felt like right off the bat when Mr. Fantastic suggests let's teleport Earth to get from Galactus, I was like, that's not going to work. Like I know it's not going to work. It's too early in the movie to suggest the thing that actually works. And sure enough, like Silver Surfer like foils that plan like right after it like goes off. So I think you told me like in last recording that that's like a thing that like Richard Reeve does. He like wants to solve teleportation. So it's probably more believable if you're like into the comic books. But for me, I was just like, wait, that's like clearly not going to work. So that felt like kind of a letdown plot wise. And then also I thought the way that they defeated Galactus, I was hoping it'd be like a little more complicated or feel a little bit more like solving a puzzle. So I mentioned this last time, but we both saw Godzilla -1 a couple years ago, and that was a super cool movie because you had a bunch of normal people going up against Godzilla, who is kind of the Galactus of that movie. And that movie, they figured out that a rapid elevation change would kill Godzilla. So a lot of the cool parts of the movie are them figuring out, oh, how do we drag down Godzilla to the bottom of the ocean and then put him back up again in order to weaken him so we can beat him. I thought maybe we get something like that in Fantastic Four, because Galactus shows up, he's taller than Statue of Liberty, he's kind of like a Godzilla-like figure. We don't quite get that. Like I don't think the final fight scene is that good. We do have like a bait and switch for the baby. The baby like moves around, and like that is something, but it's just not the same as the level of like engagement and puzzle that we get in Godzilla -1. So I thought that was a minus. I feel like a lot of people who watched this movie probably also saw Godzilla, so there's probably going to be a lot of like mental comparisons to that. So yeah, I think all those things, like the weaker plot, the not as good final fight scene, made me feel like this isn't like an S tier movie, and this is inferior to Superman. Although it's still not a bad movie. Like I want to make that clear. Like we've all seen really bad movies, and the older Fantastic Four movies are pretty bad. So I don't rag on this too much, but it just didn't quite make the mark.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And like, it's not a bad movie. There's like, you know what? Like, let me give you some positives that I really appreciate about this movie now that we're into spoilers. Like fighting their action scenes, every single action scene I think they had in this movie was very, very well executed because they made them like a group, a family. I like that this isn't another origin story where we have to see growing pains of them, like, not being on the same page about certain things, having unnecessary conflict that we've seen time and time and again in other book movies and the Fantastic Four movies themselves, the previous ones. So I like that we just moved on from that and we see them as a tight knit strategic group. For example, in that final fight, you see there's like three examples that I really appreciated. One was Ben Grimm. He throws the fuel tanker at Galactus so that Human Torch's powers are amplified when he attacks Galactus. You see Sue Storm making a similar, like a magnifying glass. So again, to amplify the Human Torch's powers, So like they, it wasn't just punch, punch, brawl, brawl, brawl. It was them working with cohesiveness that I really appreciated. Another thing that I liked was that another thing I really appreciated was that Johnny Storm isn't just some dumb jock. He actually has layers in this movie. You see,
Yeah.
he's supposed to be an astronaut, and I think a lot of people are forgetting that because they grew up with the original Fantastic Four movies. Like Joseph Quinn nailed it. He's not some man child. He he's the one who was able to solve the language problem between and decipher the language of the Silver Surfer.
Charles
Yeah.
Bell. Yeah.
Yep. And I really like that they used a different Silver Surfer who was a female. And that's going to allow us hopefully to see some future, maybe romantic. They hinted at some romantic chemistry between the two, but their chemistry was really strong in the movie. So yeah, and I also one other thing was Vanessa Kirby. I think she nailed the sense of motherhood of her protectiveness of the baby versus Reed, who is being a lot more pragmatic about the baby. So I like that dynamic between the two and their relationship. The relationship felt very real, and I like credit to them of being just as realistic as when I mentioned the relationship between Clark and Lois in Superman. I just like to
That's a
see
good point.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, the conflict between the two was pretty great to see. And of course, that space scene, every single thing about that space scene was peak Fantastic Four. So, yeah, not a bad movie whatsoever. There are hundreds and hundreds of plus points to it. It just could have been a little better.
And I think last recording we agreed. I think we wish that Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, had a little bit more to do in the plot. Because in this movie, Mr. Fantastic, he's figuring out how to move the Earth. Sue Storm is like having the baby and defending the baby. Human Torch is figuring out what's going on with Silver Surfer. And then like the Thing is like kind of off in a corner, or like he isn't quite given like a more like meaty piece of the plot. So that was like a nitpick I think we had, and I think I still stand by it. It would have been cool to see him do a little bit more. He has like a side plot where he's talking to, I think the actress name is like Natasha Lyonne, who's like a teacher in Brooklyn, and so we picked it up in the beginning, and then it comes back at the end really quick. But maybe that was like on the cutting room floor. Maybe there's some like deleted scenes to kind of flesh him out more in the actual plots. Like I said, this is short movies, so that may have been something that got cut out, but that would have been cool to see more of the Thing have an active role.
Yeah, like I think, yeah, you nailed it because the hour 55 minute runtime is so short. It felt like there's so many parts missing, and I think Ben Grimm was the biggest victim of that. I think any plot line where they were trying to flesh him out was kind of missing. He was very underdeveloped. Him and the Silver Surfer, I think both of them, whenever they had a little highlight to shine, did shine, but
Yeah,
it just wasn't
exactly.
enough. They were just underutilized completely. Um, even I forgot what her character is. Like she's from Ozark, right? She also did a great job. And the one scene where you see her not in like her CGI-ness, you could see the emotion she's feeling and like how she had to the struggle, the internal struggle within her that she is destroying all these other planets to make sure that her own planet is still alive. So yeah, I think there's some negatives there. It is what it is, but overall, still positive. Yeah, yeah.
Pop quiz. We didn't talk about this yesterday, but what famous actor had his scene deleted from this movie? Do you know?
I think I know. Is it John
Okay.
Malkovich?
Yeah, yeah.
I
I think
just learned
apparently.
that.
Okay, cool, cool. Apparently, I think he was going to be like a minor bad guy in the beginning, just to like show off the Fantastic Four like doing their thing at the top of the movie. But that scene got dropped, and so yeah, like I said, it's a short movie, and so scenes like that didn't quite make it to the final cut.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I wonder what that is. I didn't know about that literally until today, but
I didn't
it's
either.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah. Oh, in compare, like one thing I'll say that is that in comparison to the original movies, this is definitely the best of them. But I
yeah.
can see a lot of people, because they're going to be looking at it through nostalgia glasses, that this might be hand in hand with the original Fantastic Four movies with like Jessica Alba, Chris Evans. Like those were very beloved characters, so beloved that Chris Evans was in the newest Deadpool movie as the Human Torch.
Yeah.
So you know, yeah, I think this did well, but definitely better than Fan Four Stick. But I know even though this has better, for the most part, better writing, better execution, I can see a lot of people still liking the original Fantastic Four movies better, especially if they watched them as kids.
Did you want to talk about some of the box office numbers? One thing I learned today was apparently in the opening weekend or last week, 70% of the people watching it were men. But like, I think this movie has like a wide range of like potential audience, right? Like Sue Storm is like a key character, so I don't think it's
Hmm.
meant just for like the hardcore comic fans. But that said, it sounds like it's not quite keeping up with Superman. Is that right?
That is correct. I kind of want to go into just box like Superman
Yeah.
superhero movies in general. So it is looking like maybe it's because of current events within our country and how our administration is looking internationally. But domestic wise, these movies are doing just as fine as they normally do.
Oh, I
It's
see.
international markets where it's really cratered.
Gotcha.
So that's just superhero movies in general. If you had these box office numbers with Man of Steel's like international, if we're talking about Superman, let's say Superman domestic numbers are as is, and their international numbers was similar to what Man of Steel was, it would have been close to $1 billion movie. Instead, Superman is going to make around 650 to maybe $700 million. Um, it's also Fantastic Four is also dealing with something similar, where internationally it's just not being as accepted as it is domestically. However, looking at apples to apples between these two movies, it looked like initial predictions that Fantastic Four was going to make around 20 million more dollars over the opening weekend that Superman was. However, it actually ended up making around $10 million less than Superman. So it looked like even during the opening weekend, majority of people watched it on the Thursday, Friday, the opening of the weekend. And then there was a huge drop on like Saturday and Sunday. So what's like, I don't know what it is. I think Superman just got a lot of good word of mouth. I know so many
Yeah.
people were talking about it like casual people who usually don't go to like movie theaters every week or anything like that. They all heard about this word of mouth, and the legs for Superman is just consistently doing so well. In comparison, I feel like Fantastic Four is acting like your typical comic book movie where a lot of people watched it in the beginning and then it just petered down slowly. And now, even now, if you're looking at comparisons week over week, the drops of Fantastic Four are very steep compared to what Superman is experiencing. So it seems like, but the people who are watching it are enjoying it. So I don't know what it is. It received the same cinema score as Superman. It received similar box office and Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, maybe like a smidge under Superman, but nothing crazy. So it is very interesting to see, but I think it's also a symptom of the superhero box office in general, the environment that we're in.
Yeah, and like we've seen that even in our own podcast numbers. Our Superman episode was like one of our best performing episodes ever. Like people
Hmm.
want to talk about and hear Superman content. And
Hmm.
then yeah, I suspect it is a little bit word of mouth. I think people are saying or like the fact that they're not saying anything, just indication, oh, this is like another superhero movie. One thing I want to call out though, this movie is doing better than Thunderbolts, I believe. So I think the Fantastic Four brand definitely stands out than just some generic Marvel movie, which is maybe how people perceive Thunderbolts. So, like, I guess that's encouraging for the studio. But yeah, it's not doing quite as well as Superman.
Yeah, and I think we need to come to the conclusion that we're not in that same era of superhero movie golden age, you know? It was like that era like 2015 to 2020 where
Yeah,
like you just if you make an above average comic book movie, it'll automatically gross like $1 billion. It's just not the new normal anymore. In fact, I think it was like there were more $1 billion movies from 2015 to 2000 than the rest of box office combined, like history combined. So
yeah.
maybe we need to start thinking about budgets. Maybe we need to get like lower budgets so that, a movie doesn't need to make like $500 million to break even. So yeah, we're in this new normal where we need to adjust the box office things. We need to adjust expectations. But also, I think both brands are dealing with very mediocre movies. I think Fantastic Four did better than Thunderbolts because Thunderbolts was followed from the Captain America movie, which did not do well, which followed,
Oh,
I
right.
think, Quantum Mania, which also didn't do well.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, Thunderbolts probably got more people to start watching again, and that's what got more people excited about Fantastic Four, especially with
sure.
that post-credit scene. So, yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but you know what they have to do? They just have to keep making good movies versus making comic book movies in general. Like they need to focus on quality above and beyond anything because that word of mouth, as Superman is showing, is what's making uh, sure that even after the opening weekend, it can consistently, through its release window, make money.
I think this is the last superhero movie we have until Avengers Doomsday. Is that right? Do you know any other ones coming out?
On the Marvel side,
Yeah.
what about Spider-Man?
Oh,
No?
when does Spider Man come out?
I don't know. I just heard that it just started filming recently. Also,
Yeah,
Supergirl. I think Supergirl is soon
I
too.
I think Supergirl is next, and then it's Avengers Doomsday. But Supergirl isn't until let's see, Supergirl 2026. That is June 26, 2026. So that's like
Oh wow.
literally 11 months from now.
Wow. You know what? I think that'll be good. I think people need to kind of get a little cleanse of superhero movies so that when it comes back, it's like an event again. I think
Right.
we just had too much content. Like it's just too
Yeah.
much at this point. So yeah, let's see what happens. But you know what? I'll give credit to both Superman and Fantastic Four. These are both like Fantastic Four is the start of a new phase, and Superman is like the start of the DCU and this new universe that James Gunn is creating.
Yep.
I think they're both off to a great start. And as many complaints as we both have for these two movies, and not for Fantastic Four, it is still a great movie. Especially that first half, very good. And I think these found the foundations that these two movies have built will lead to a new golden generation of comic book movies. We just had a little lull after Endgame, and I think we're going to be right back at it now.
Yeah, it's nice that both sides are embracing immediate res or just like jumping into storyline and not dealing with origin stories anymore. Because we had like a decade of origin stories, so now we can focus more on just cool comic stories. So yeah, that's encouraging, and yeah, like these are solid outings, and so this is like a good foundation for Supergirl and Avengers Doomsday when those come out. And Avengers Doomsday that's coming out tentatively Christmas 2026. So be patient. That's still a year and a half away.
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's our Fantastic Four. You want to do reviews like our letterbox, what we're gonna give it?
Yeah, I think yesterday I said 3.5. Like, yeah, I think 3.5 out of 5 is what I would give it.
Yeah, I think for me it's solid 3. I
Solid
think
3, yeah.
great movie, good movie. So yeah, let's go on to weekly recommendations. Zach, I wonder what you're gonna pick. Let me get this book ready.
Yeah. So my weekly recommendation is K-pop Demon Hunters. If you are a fan of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I got it right this time. What is that book?
Last time I had to correct Zach because he said
Yeah.
No Way Home. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then somehow I had this trusty book right in front of me at the time. So haha, inside jokes, you guys won't get it. It'll be in the Snyder cut of this.
It will be funny, or I think we'll cry a little bit, but it'll be funny if the original recording somehow reappears and we can release a Snyder cut of this podcast. Yeah, so like, I mean, while we're waiting for the next Into the Spider-Verse movie to come out, K-pop Demon Hunters, it uses a similar artistic style to the Spider-Verse movies, and I think this movie has like a real emotional payout once it gets to like the final battle scene, the final climax. You really do feel it, and it feels well earned. So I would say it's a recommendation. I'm not into like K-pop per se, but as you pointed out yesterday, if you are into K-pop, then it's even better because you have the awesome music there to keep it going as the movie goes on. But yeah, the movie is funny, has good action, and it has all the good things that the Into the Spider-Verse has. So it's cool just to see that randomly pop up this year on Netflix.
Yeah, I think one thing I mentioned last time was that I love what Into the Spider-Verse has done for the animation community.
Yeah.
Pre Spider-Verse, it felt like every animation movie was either hand drawn or it did that Pixar realistic lighting, realistic, facial features and everything with a little cartoonishness going on every now and then. However, what Into the Spider-Verse did was like it allowed animators to be creative again and just go balls to the wall crazy with like animation styles and like doing like not realistic lighting at all, making it look like an actual comic book movie. And you know what? I think it unlocked the creativity for other animators to take risks. So like Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, I think did a watercolor style movie. You had Mitchell versus the Machines, which did a similar style to what Into the Spider-Verse did. You had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which did this incredible animation with like, it felt like very stop motion, but it isn't. Very neon lights. I really liked that each one of these has its own character now. Even Pixar, I think it was like Turning Red after Into the Spider-Verse came out, did some more stylistic things that they wouldn't otherwise have done. So yeah, like I think this is a continuation of this K-pop show or movie.
Yeah.
Like K-pop. What is it called?
K-pop Demon Hunters.
Ooh, close.
Yeah,
K-pop Demon Hunters. Yeah.
You almost had it. Mitchell's versus the Machines. 97% are Rotten Tomatoes. This seems like a movie. Seems like a good movie. I didn't know about it.
Oh, you should definitely watch it. You know what? Last time I said my weekly recommendation was it was a little unorthodox, but I do need to mention this. Guys, if you guys are, iffy about going watch Fantastic Four, I would say please go watch it in IMAX, but make sure you're there ahead of time because the Avatar trailer before the Fantastic Four movie absolutely slaps. It is James Cameron. You can never doubt James Cameron. He is the GOAT. He knows what to do. Never
Always
doubt the GOAT. Yeah. James Cameron doesn't do what James Cameron does for James Cameron. James Cameron does what James Cameron does because he is James Cameron, and he proved it just with this trailer. Because, wow, I'm so glad I drafted that movie, Zach. I'm so glad.
And like I was saying yesterday, it's been a couple of years since the last Avatar. You think, okay, how many of these movies can he actually do? It's like about blue aliens, and the plot's kind of similar between each one, sort of. But then you watch this trailer, and it's like, holy cow, you did it again. This is literally the most gorgeous trailer I've seen, like, maybe in years. So, like, yeah, it seems like you did it again, and I'm salty you chose Avatar for the movie draft.
Yeah, it wasn't a hard choice. It wasn't a hard choice at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Man, I already got goosebumps again thinking about that trailer. Like, it was that good. It was that good. We're gonna have to go to like a midnight showing for this in Lincoln Square to even have a chance of good seats.
Definitely.
But all right, Zach. I think we got almost all the talking points that we did last time out for the most part.
Yeah, and then you were talking about the Scotiabank Theater in Toronto.
Oh,
Just being a
yeah,
full
yeah, yeah.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was in Canada for the weekend and unfortunately could not use my A-list, so I actually had to pay additional money to
Womp
go
womp.
watch this movie. Very big womp womp. AMC, come on, man, expand to Canada. That would be awesome. That might actually make me convince, like, my wife's trying to convince me to move to Canada, and that would be one of the major reasons I would be like, all right, cool, I would. So
Nice.
the atmosphere in this, it was a Scotiabank theater. Awesome. It felt like I was back in like the 2000s, like late, that the golden era of theaters, like absolutely crowded theater, absolutely crowded, like everyone walking around. There's like arcades there, like people were playing, people were just like drinking at the bar. And it was like,
Mhm.
as a move, like such a regular moviegoer, it was so nice to see that sense of community. And yeah, I would, if you guys are ever in Canada, Scotiabank Arena Theater, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
it's like in Toronto, the city proper. Please go watch a movie there. It is awesome. So
Yeah, it seems beloved. Yesterday, I saw that it had 9,000 reviews on Google Maps, which is like pretty colossal for a movie theater. So, if you're in Toronto, that seems like the play. If you have a free afternoon.
yep. On that note, Zach, I think
Yeah,
great doing this again. Until next time. Hopefully, not a third time. I don't want to do a fantastic 4 episodes with you, as fantastic as they are.
that would
Fantastic.
be pretty rough. Yeah, not fantastic. That would
Not
be
fantastic.
Galactus. Yeah.
That would be glad.
I was trying to think how to negate it. Yeah, please like and subscribe, and we'll be back hopefully with the best of the year so far, and maybe a TV episode. So stay tuned. If this recording actually worked, if not, we may need to go cry and re-record or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Fantastic. All right, see you, dude. Cheers.
See ya. See ya. Have a fantastic night. Peace. Say it.